Oh lord, every now and then I come across a comment proclaiming that sex scenes and nudity in general are unnecessary. These people claim it ruins their movie experience. They were trying to watch an R-rated movie with their parents and were suddenly confronted by the beast with two backs. God damn it, man. I'm trying to lock in on some content, escape the real world, and this the shit I gotta deal with. Even though this conversation has grown more prevalent over the last decade, I find this statement incredibly short-sighted. These debates usually end up in the same place as those arguing against telling the other side to name one. Name a movie where it's necessary. And that one movie that always gets named is Basic Instinct. It's the obvious choice. I mean, still a good rebuttal because erotic thrillers is a genre that directly deals with the topics of sex, romance, desire, and obsession. It's kind of the point. Movies like Bound, Fatal Attraction, and of course Stanley Kubrick's Eyes Wide Shut. A more recent example of one would be Baby Girl, which explored power dynamics and self-discovery. Yeah, it wasn't great.
Her vagine hang like sleeve of wizard.
But that's the obvious answer. My biggest argument for their use is artistic expression. Exploring taboo topics, movies like Boogie Nights, and its examination of the adult film industry's destructive tendencies. Rest in peace, David Lynch's Blue Velvet uses sex to explore power, corruption, love. And these scenes, although uncomfortable, are intrinsic to the narrative. He's able to achieve a raw emotional power through their exploration. These scenes allow viewers to connect with characters on a more personal level. They can be used to invoke empathy and an understanding for the character's experiences. Sex is also a basic fact of everyday life, some more than others, am I right? My problem is removing all that would strip these movies of their authenticity, which is something Hollywood has struggled with recently. Can you imagine a movie like The Wolf of Wall Street without the debauchery? I mean, that's the entire point. You're dragged into the chaotic life of a despicable character. Drugs, money, women flowing like water, the benefits of unwavering greed, and also the cost. It's unrelenting, uncompromising, and fearless. By the end, you're exhausted by the sheer degeneracy. So many iconic moments, too.
You're leaving. Don't get involved. Go home to your wife.
The backlash surrounding Oppenheimer's nude scene was the moment where I was like, damn, man, it's crazy to see people get all up in arms over some hawkers. Florence Pugh's nude scene wasn't gratuitous. It informed and impacted the characters and their framing. You're able to see the characters at their most vulnerable, and that's especially invaluable when dealing with romance. Oppenheimer uses this to its advantage in other ways. The scene when Kitty imagines Jean with Robert is hauntingly effective. It's not all about eye candy.
It's about love. It's about people. It's about connection.
It's all about connections.
It's set about cock and ass and tits and butthole pleasures.
Name one, shit, I keep naming them. Another one is The Substance, where nudity is directly connected to the film's themes and character motivations. I mean, I can keep going. But let's talk about the show that uses it all. And this is the show that this discussion started about, Game of Thrones. Of course, based on the popular fantasy books by George R. R. Martin, HBO had the ability to pull no punches when it came to the precarious subject matter within the Grimdark series. It had it all: intrigue, death, dragons,
And twins!
yeah, copious amounts. It even created a new narrative device called Sexposition. Well, I recently rewatched season 1, and it was quite sobering. At one time, I wish they would have waited until the books were finished to adapt the series, because in my view, without all the fame and popularity, George would have finished the books, or at least Winds would be out by now. The problem is, regardless of the books being finished, they would never be able to replicate this level of authenticity nowadays. The fumbling of some of the core beats in House of the Dragon exemplifies this. Game of Thrones Season 1 is one of the best examples of a near perfect adaptation that absolutely takes advantage of the visual medium.
A 10! A 10! A fucking 10!
Yeah, then you find out that's our brother. But this is the perfect introduction to our character. This scene tells you everything you need to know. Danny comes off as this frightened, timid girl living under her brother's thumb, literally. But there's a subtle strength to her, and we see her dejected and purposeless as she walks into the scalding bathwater. Now juxtapose that with our final scene, Danny walking into the fire, assured, confident, rising from the ashes. A true Targaryen, covered in soot, dragons on her shoulders. It's one of the most badass and striking shots in fantasy. And this show showcases different ways of using sex and nudity within a story. It not only uses it to build characters, but to add spice to certain scenes. One of the main intentions behind this story was to explore what a fantasy world would actually be like. It throws all the tropes away and gives you an authentic look at the harsh reality of the depravity that would have taken place based on our own history. Sex and violence went hand in hand. The funny thing is, people will treat violence and murder like it's just another Tuesday, but God forbid a tit flops out.
Well, then everyone loses their minds.
It's interesting to see where people draw that line. Now, something like The Lord of the Rings using classic fantasy storytelling tropes, it would not only feel out of place, but incredibly misguided. It all comes down to the tone you're setting. The Wheel of Time adaptation is a good example of people not trying to adapt the story for what it is, but trying to adapt it for what they want it to be. They wanted the next Game of Thrones and tried upping the sex and actively harming the story in the process. So yes, it can be detrimental, but it all comes down to context. Now to address the elephants in the room, feminists. They're always up to argue the practicality of sex within movies. I've seen many shit on the idea and at the same time go all out supporting women making adult content. I mean, I guess OF is empowering, but nudity in art is dehumanizing. But the male gaze. Oh Lord, the hatred of the male gaze is more man-hate nonsense. It's feminists wanting control over how women act, and they'll shame those that don't conform to their dogma. It's not about autonomy, it's a method of control. They're all for the female gaze, that's okay, even though the so-called male gaze is responsible for creating some of the best female characters in fiction. So can we not, people? Modern movies are already too corporate, sanitized, and safe. A big issue is a lack of romance and sex appeal. Studios are leaving money on the table by excluding it. I mean, for women too, have you seen this shit a lot of women read? It makes Satan blush. Romance has mostly been relegated to TV shows and streaming. Studios are still stuck trying to artificially enhance success. They want to make it by the book, trying to capture the biggest audience possible, going down that damn checklist. We can't piss anybody off. We need the 4-quadrant film.
They don't want the audience to be uncomfortable. They want to be able to market something that the audience will understand and the audience will get their $8 worth.
Ugh, God, you try to make it for everyone and you end up making it for no one. Just garbage. Yes, sex is used as a marketing tool, a cheap way to spice up a scene, but when executed with care, they can be used to build story, craft characters, establish tone, enrich storytelling by providing depth, realism, and emotional engagement. As long as everything is done between consenting adults, get over it. At the end of the day, it all comes down to taste. Personally, I like movies that delve into the darker side of humanity and explore uncomfortable themes. I want movies to push boundaries. If it's not your thing, I don't have a problem with that. But yes, sex scenes are necessary if you want movies that are unfettered, provocative, rebellious, and authentic.
But I love movies like that.
Absolutely.
I think movies should inflict themselves on the audience.
Absolutely.
You know, I'm so tired of this whole idea of it just being entertainment or dessert.
I've said my piece. Thanks for watching.